Hello and welcome to Imagine Your Story, Week 6, Timeless Tales. I'm Miss Susan and I'm here to talk about folk tales, specifically Johnny Appleseed, one of my favorites. You can pick up a packet at your library. You'll see a word find, my science experiment, how to make an apple volcano, apple pear sauce recipe, and how to make apple cinnamon Play-Doh. It smells wonderful. Also on the back is a list of suggested reading. Today I'm talking about folk tales. You might have heard some folk tales. You might have heard of Paul Bunyan and his ox Babe. You might have heard of John Henry and his hammer. You might have heard of David Crockett and his raccoon hat. Today I'm talking about Johnny Appleseed. That was a real man named John Chapman who planted apples across America. I'm going to read a little bit to you out of this story. This version is retold by Margaret Henry, and the publisher is Cavendish Square. When John was 18, he left his grandmother's house. He wanted to travel and see the world. This is when his adventures began. Many people were traveling from the east toward the west at that time in search of more land. John decided to go with them. He loved traveling and discovering new places, meeting new people, and exploring new areas. But most of the travelers would soon find a clear spot and settle down. John was very upset. Oh no, he thought, I would never be able to live in one place my whole life. What should I do now? John noticed that many people settling down were having a hard time farming land that had never been cultivated before. John had an idea. Hey, what if I plant trees before the settlers get here, he thought. That way they don't need to bother cultivating the land and I don't have to settle down. Now John was faced with a question. What type of tree should he plant? There were so many to choose from. Can you guess which tree he chose to plant in these lands? That's right. He thought of all the delicious things that could be made out of apples and decided to plant apple trees wherever he could. And so John would move west ahead of the travelers and find nice fertile land. He would clear it and sow the seeds himself. He would then build a fence around the trees to protect them from wild animals. And as the trees grew, John would sell them to the settlers when they arrived. If any tree remained unsold, he would come back periodically to check on it. When the settlers came, they were welcomed by the familiar apple trees. They could eat pies, make apple butter, and even drink cider. Before then, they were forced to eat fish and meat every day. Can you imagine eating the same thing day in and day out? John would often walk down the road with a huge sack of seeds swung over his back, sowing apple trees along the way. One day a little boy saw him and shouted, Ma, look, Johnny Appleseed is here. He's planting more trees. The name stuck, and after that, everyone called him Johnny Appleseed. Johnny had a dream. He wished that no one in America would ever go hungry. He wanted to plant enough apple trees to feed everyone. Many poor people could not afford food. He would give them his apples and apple seeds for free. Johnny didn't have a home of his own. The earth is my home and the sky is my roof, he would say. He loved sleeping in the forest under the starry sky. If the weather was bad, he would ask for shelter from a family in exchange for apple seeds. Even then, he would sleep on the floor near the fireplace. Everyone welcomed him with open arms. This is where the tall tale starts. Since Johnny went across the country, he would tell stories to people. They say that he always was barefoot, even in the winter. His feet were so calloused that a rattlesnake could bite him and it wouldn't even hurt. They say he made friends with a wolf, and the wolf was his friend outside. What we're going to do first now today is I'm going to show you a trick that you can do at home and be a little bit like Johnny Appleseed and learn about apples. If you take a apple like this, put it on its side, get mom or dad to help you, cut right in the middle. Do you know what is inside of the apple? It's a star. Very easy to see. A math activity you can do is count how many seeds are in each apple. Sometimes they're different. Also, talk about the apple. Is it red? Is it green? What's your favorite kind of apple? Mine's a Fuji. The next thing I want to show you is a craft project that's not in my packet. It's how to make a honeycomb apple. You can go to YouTube or you can go to our Creative Bug website to see how to make a honeycomb apple. Basically, you'll need to take a stack of about 50 or so of tissue paper, pieces of tissue paper. You're going to glue lines on the tissue paper, alternating lines, making a big stack. It takes about an hour, so look online for details, and then you have a beautiful honeycomb apple. Next thing I want to do is an apple volcano. Do you know that you can do a volcano with pretty much anything? First, you're going to need to start with some baking soda. Baking soda is what's called in science a base. If you tasted it, it would taste kind of chalky. So we're going to put that base inside a hollowed out apple. You could use a spoon or a knife if you're with your mom or dad. Put the baking soda in the apple like so. A little bit too much there. If you would like some color, you can put some food coloring inside. If you'd like a lot of bubbles, you can use some dish soap. Squirt some of that in there. So our baking soda is our base. Vinegar is our acid. What happens is the acid and the base combine and they make CO2, which is the bubbles. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Ooh. We did it. Your own apple volcano. The last book I just want to end with is by a very popular author, Jane Yolen. This is called Johnny Appleseed by Jane Yolen. And this comes to us from HarperCollins. And it talks about what legends and folk tales are. You know, sometimes when you tell a story, each time you tell a story, like a fish story, the fish that you caught gets bigger and bigger and bigger in the story. People like to embellish when they tell stories. Makes them interesting. The end of this book says, legends are like that. They take over the real life story. But John Chapman, Johnny Appleseed, or Appleseed John as he was alternately called, led a life that was in some ways even greater than the legends. He really did change the landscape of the country, planting great apple orchards and selling them to thousands of westward travelers till all of America was apple land, from sea to shining sea. So I welcome you to learn more about Johnny Appleseed. You can visit his birthplace in Leominster, Massachusetts, or the place he passed away in Fort Wayne, Indiana. They have a Johnny Seed Apple Festival every year where you can dress up like Pioneer Times and eat kennel corn. I've been there, had a great time. Thanks for watching. See you next time.